Watch more programs like this on cable and stream with PCN Select. Subscribe at PCNTV.com. This program has been paid for by the sponsor and does not reflect the views of PCN.
Welcome to another edition of PHRC Speaks, Fair Housing in the 21st Century. I'm your host, Adrian Garcia, Director of the Fair Housing and Commercial Property Division for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Recently, there have been many articles focused on appraisal bias. The Department of Housing and Urban Development assembled a multi-agency property appraisal valuation equity task force, which released the action plan to advance property appraisal and valuation equity. Additionally, and according to the New York Times, the Federal Housing Finance Agency released 47 million appraisal reports to the public for the first time. The appraisals, which were compiled between 2013 and 2021, present evidence of a persistent, widespread practice in the home appraisal industry to give higher values to homes when the occupants are white and devalue them if the owners are people of color. Our guest today will help us understand more about the appraisal process by breaking it down to the basics, which will allow you, the viewer, to know how appraisal bias can happen. Andre Lanier is principal at Xact Appraisal Services, an Illinois-based appraisal valuation service. A Chicago native, Andre has combined his social work, activism, community involvement, and entrepreneurial spirit, which has led him to become a highly sought-after speaker on real estate issues and the appraisal process. His real estate and appraisal career spans over 20 years, as he has objectively represented the market value of residential and commercial properties in all of Chicago's neighboring communities. His knowledge of real estate is more than an analyzing of data. It encompasses hands-on experience on the front line of developing urban areas. His background and experience as a full-time real estate appraiser, property inspector, real estate broker, renovation construction specialist have given him a distinguishable advantage in the real estate market by bringing his specialized expertise to these positions and providing a 360-degree view of the real estate transactions. I had the opportunity to hear him speak in Philadelphia a few months ago, and I thought it would be beneficial for our viewers to have him join us on PHRC Speaks. Welcome, Andre, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm so excited. How are we going to get all this information in a half an hour? But it's an exciting time. It's a pleasure to meet you.
We're going to do our best.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So I'm curious, and I'm sure some of our viewers are as well. How did you become involved in housing justice and the appraisal bias in particular?
Well, actually, it's through firsthand experience. It actually happened to me on multiple fronts. In addition to being a appraiser, I'm also a licensed realtor. So just being a licensed realtor, working with buyers and sellers, in my market, doing the work, doing a good job. When I was getting to the appraisal phase of, collateralization of the loans, I started looking at these appraisals that were coming back and these lowball appraisals, which weren't supported by the market. And, based on the principle of substitution. But the pattern that I saw is that when there's appraisals and collateralization in the Black and Latino communities versus the white communities, that those lowball appraisals were happening consistently, in those minority communities. And from that, I said, hey, your client wants answers. So when they're experiencing, inequity, they come to you as a real estate professional and say, hey, what do I do in this case? Why is this going on? How can this be? And I wanted to have the answers. I didn't want to be subjective in my response. So I said, hey, let me learn more about the appraisal process. Let me become more knowledgeable. that was my first inroads. I said, first I wanted to become knowledgeable. So I started taking classes and courses, and I said, hey, you know what? This is a profession that would add to my repertoire, as a real estate professional. So I went all the way in beyond just taking some classes and getting some background information and getting my feet wet. I went all in, took all the classes, got licensed, was an apprentice, worked up under someone for a great deal of time. So that when this happened with my clients, that I'm able to, able to fight back. So it was on the front lines, directly one-on-one working with a client that I actually experienced this appraisal bias as a real estate professional. And, this is 2022. I'm celebrating my 20th anniversary. I've been a licensed appraiser for 20 years.
Wow.
And here's the crazy thing. Surely the road should have gotten smoother, right? But there was another front. So now as a licensed appraisal professional in the industry, I encountered appraisal bias on a whole other front. And this is from the lender. So I'm just doing my job like everybody else. I take pride in my work. I'm doing my due diligence. I'm putting my work in. And I just saw another pattern. So it's like, why, when I am doing my appraisal work in minority communities, when it gets to the QA process, they're sending me back. They give me a hard time. They're saying, hey, how did you arrive at this value? Hey, take a look at these other comparables. How come you didn't use these sales and this, that, or whatever? It's a lot of pushback, like they would fight me on my conclusions. And I found that I was only getting this pushback only in the minority communities. I never had this issue in the other communities. So I appraise in all markets. So when they start sending me, back these, requests for additional information, this, that, or whatever, it's creating a lot of legwork on my time, like they try to, give you a hard time. So ultimately, I was always fighting for the equitable value that I'm providing for all of my clients. And what I found is that, these same lenders, would stop sending me work. They kind of cut you off at the knees. So I found that, I've been fighting appraisal bias on two fronts, right on the front lines in the community, dealing with the buyers and sellers when their values are not equitable, but also standing up to the lenders when it seemed that they were systemically, trying to push back and lowball the values in entire communities. So that's kind of my entree into fighting appraisal bias on both fronts.
Well, that's an amazing story. So with that history, what have you learned? Is the basic knowledge base that a real estate professional, maybe not someone that wants to get in and go all in as you did, but what are the basic appraisal, or what should they know about the appraisal bias as a basic?
Right. As a real estate professional, whether you're appraiser, or whether you're a realtor, whether you're a lender, anybody that's in the real estate field, appraising and valuation of that collateral, you have to have a knowledge base. And to understand that is that ultimately, when you're appraising, you're measuring buyer's price reaction. And if you don't understand those markets, right, if you don't have geographical competence, if you don't go into those minority communities, if you don't know why that buyer, chooses to buy that particular house, live on that particular block, if you don't have any geographical competence, it's a contact sport. So you may not be a realtor, but as an appraiser, you have to have firsthand knowledge in relationships with real estate agents that are local experts. And they can tell you what the buyers are saying to them. This is what they're looking for. These are the check boxes that they're giving me to go out there and find the properties. This is what they find appealing. These are the schools that they like. These are the restaurants that they like to leave. These are the social things that they gravitate. That's why they're buying those markets. So a lot of times, geographical competence, you have to have geographical competence. Otherwise, you're just bringing in data. And then you bring it in data, then you subjectively trying to analyze what did this data mean and what is it saying? That brings in a lot of subjectivity. That brings in a lot of bias. Okay. Go ahead.
So can you provide now for our viewers what they should be aware of when having appraisals performed on their home? What should they be looking out for?
Sure. The same way when you went out to look for a house, you gave your realtor, a checkbox. I want these houses to have these things. This is my checklist. These are my must-haves. But also you have to understand that your real estate, you're buying this home, your real estate, this is a part of your real estate portfolio. This is a real estate investment, and you want to return on that investment. And also now we're at a point in our society that appraisal and collateralization has to be a part of your financial literacy. You just can't depend on others and say, okay, that's something somebody else does when they come out and give me the results. So us as consumers, when you purchase in real estate, you have to do your homework and become knowledgeable about your market. So what are you looking at? Not only are you looking at the cosmetic things that make up the physical attributes of a particular home, you want that information from your real estate professional showing how those homes are performing. Are they appreciating? Is this particular type of real estate, is it appreciating? Is it depreciating? Things that you want to know when it comes to the appraisal process. When your realtor is going to hire you to go find a property, you want to say, hey, are you going to help me through the appraisal process? In terms of helping me get comparable sales, working with that appraiser to make sure that he's geographically competent, that he's getting the right information, that he's weighing apples to apples. If you're the homeowner that's already in your home, you have to understand that your home is an asset and you're presenting that as collateral. So guess what? You need to document the improvements to your property. What's going on behind the walls? Because when an appraiser walks in, they can see the bells and whistles, so to speak, but that appraiser doesn't know if your roof was just repaired, if the plumbing and the mechanicals inside the walls are new, things that a buyer determines that has some value to it. So you have to document the improvements of your house, and you want to be proactive. So when that appraiser comes out, you don't just open the door, let him come in and leave. You're actually giving him some information about your house and showing him that you understand, what you have there. So you're giving them the physical information. You're giving them some market information about substituting properties so that right up front that he knows that he's aware, that you're aware of, where your property fits in the marketplace. All right. And also to understand, most importantly, that whether you're buying a property or if you're refinancing and you're leveraging your property, always know that if there is an issue where your property doesn't collateralize out and there's an appraisal issue, that you should always do a ROV, which is a reconsideration of value. That's a must. That is a staple. So you just don't get frustrated, as we always do, and get enraged and just say, okay, let me try another lender, and let me go a different route. Sometimes you just quit the process altogether. That you set to say, hey, there's always a reconsideration of value. There's always organizations out there that help you fight and get through that issue. So those are the three things. Be proactive, engage a real estate professional, help you engage the information that's needed. But if there is an issue, be willing to go all the way to make sure that you can fight for that lender to get it right.
So let me, I'm going to have a follow-up before I go on to my next question. I've heard of drive-by appraisals. These appraisals that seemingly they go by, they just drive by, they don't go into the house. Is that a standard in the industry? Is that acceptable?
Well, they've introduced that. They've tried to do that. That's okay if you're in a cookie cutter market and all the properties are exactly the same. But unfortunately, as a buyer, on your same block, on the outside, when you drive down the block, all the houses can be similar in terms of their construction. Mm-hmm. But on the inside, the improvements can be completely different. And from a buyer standpoint, they see value based on as the kitchens and baths renewed, renovated. Buyers have more value in that, because if they have to make those renovations and change it themselves, there's a cost to that. So there's a cost value based on the improvements. You can't see improvements unless you open up the door and see, what's going on, what's true to life. AVM is only extrapolating data and averages, from a marketplace. Everything is based on improvement. So if you're not actually, peeling the onion, opening up the door, seeing what improvements are there, and then analyzing those improvements and seeing where the market's reaction is to those, then you don't have a credible appraisal. So AVMs are not highly credible in most of our markets, put it that way.
Appreciate that. Now, I understand that there have been some initiatives and regulatory devices put in place in Chicago to help reduce appraisal bias. What have you seen in that regard?
Sure. as Gandhi said, one of his quotes is, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. So here in Illinois, we're at that phase, just as they are there in Philadelphia, that we're in the fighting phase. And now everybody is acknowledging that there is a problem. So now here in Illinois, and also in Chicago through the Chicago Association of Realtors, the Illinois Association of Realtors, we have committees and task force that you can take intakes where we feel that if you've experienced appraisal bias, where you're getting a lowball appraisal, that there's hotlines and numbers that you can call, and those are committees that have members from not only appraisers, but there's members of realtors that are on there. There's local business persons, and there's just everyday homeowners. So there are stakeholders that are on these committees that are analyzing these complaints and looking at these appraisals and find out, what's the motive, what needs to go on there. And then based on what they see and their findings, then they shoot that over to the different regulatory bodies, whether that's the Illinois Department of Regulation, Fair Housing, Attorney General, offshoots based on what the findings are. So there are some, there is something in place that you can say, hey, who do I call? And these are all spearheaded by your neighborhood housing organizations. So you have neighborhood housing services, but there's hundreds of local housing organizations that are right in the community. These home buying counselors are going through appraisal bias right now. And when a homeowner is encountering this, whether they're refinancing, trying to get a renovation loan, whether they're purchasing a property, if there's an issue, they have an organization that they can go to and they can have someone jump in the fight with them. These things can be logged, there can be some tracking, and there can be some accountability. So those are just now in play. We're talking about within the past, 12 to 24 months that these things are currently in place. So it's a fluid process, but at least you're not out there on your own trying to figure this thing out or trying to fight it on your own as a homeowner. That is not where we are, which is exciting because, if you're on your own, you can get frustrated and fall out of the fight.
Sure. So how do you think HUD's action plan for advancing property assessment, valuation, and equity will assist you in your work moving forward? That was the report that was put out by HUD.
You know what? That's probably one of the most exciting pieces of research and reports that's put out there, because what it is, it's an action plan. Mm-hmm. It is an action plan. So oftentimes, right, we watch CNN, we say, okay, we're going to have a hearing. Somebody's going to talk about it. There's some dialogue back and forth. And at the end of the day, 2 years from now, based on the law of diminishing intent, nobody's done anything. And it's just a distant memory. Mm-hmm. It's about that action plan, how thorough it is, not only all the organizations that are involved in it, it hits all of the tentacles. First, it says, hey, this is what we need to do from a state and federal level. This is what we need to do in terms of incorporating into laws. So right now, we're addressing not only on a federal level, but on the state level, laws that need to be enacted that specifically speak to fair housing and appraisal bias. Up until now, there's been no language in law, so people didn't know how to approach it. So now, say, for instance, in the state of Illinois, there's House bills that are being introduced that are going to speak to that, not just for appraisers, but also if you're a realtor or anyone that's involved in a real estate profession, that speaks to fair housing and appraisal bias, and that you are breaking the law. So that PAVE report speaks to that. Not only that, it speaks to, hey, you lenders, you have to do a better job and have something structured on how you deal with ROVs, reconsideration of values. Everybody can't be willy-nilly and you do it this way. Okay, I looked at it. Okay, well, we're just going to go with the appraisal. We took a look at it. No, they're saying in their report, no, you have to develop a structured way in a standard how these reconsideration of values are going to be done time and time again for every person. So when that person complains, that you just don't just shoo them off and pretend as though you've done some due diligence. So they're saying to lenders, you need to show and you need to develop a process on these ROVs. It speaks in that report on you as the homeowner, as hey, And also when you apply for an FHA loan, it's going to be in that documentation. So you as an owner, when you go apply for a loan now, a HUD and FHA is going to say to you, hey, in your first time home buyers class, we're going to talk about different things, buying a home, how to deal with mortgages, things, dealing with lenders, predatory lending. But guess what? Now HUD is going to incorporate appraisal buyers. So you understand collateralization. So you as a buyer, as I spoke to earlier, you have some financial literacy. So you understand what's going on, but also to understand the bottom line, the HUD and FHA is saying, hey, if there's an issue, file a reconsideration of value. You have to do that, to protect yourself. Just as though they give you the form and say, hey, you're getting ready to buy a house, get a home inspection. We're warning you, lights on, So they're putting that information out in their collateral. That PAVE does have their own website. So I would recommend every homeowner to go on that PAVE website and read that. I mean, they go through the history, so you understand redlining from the appraisal process, how appraisals were even looked at, that it was, that it was biased. It was based on a whole bias principle in and of itself on how you even evaluating property. So it was very comprehensive. It was very systemic. It talked about all the different tentacles of all the major people that are involved. So how that's going to help me going forward is that there's a standard in place now. Here's the action plan. So everybody is now working in your individual state, in your municipality, in your city to engage these action steps. So this is coming straight from the top. Say, hey, every community, every state, you need to be engaging and incorporating all of these things in your marketplace. So how that helps me is that I don't come across as subjective when I'm out here having a fight and we're taking something on and saying, hey, are these things in place? What is in place? So that's something that you have at your arsenal, that it is more accepted now, in our society. So I'm very excited about the report, the effort that was put into it, but also most importantly, the in detail action steps that they have in that report that they want us as a country to embark on.
Thank you. And as we start to wind down, I want to ask you, what are the takeaways that you would want our viewers to keep in mind as they navigate through that real estate and appraisal process? If you could just talk in the last 5 minutes that we have here, what are the takeaways they should have and keep in mind as they navigate through this appraisal process?
Right. Understand that we checked all the boxes when we bought a home. We say, hey, we want the kitchen to have this. We want the bathroom to have this. We want the bedroom size to be this so we can fit this furniture. We want it to be in this particular school district because we want our kids to go to this. We understand check boxes based on lifestyle. And that's how we've operated as buyers. The takeaway is that us as buyers is that unfortunately, or fortunately, as minorities, buying a house is and may be the largest investment that you're going to make. And you're relying on that for your legacy, for your kids, to perform for your kids and your kids' kids. You're buying it as an investment. So with that, you have to be proactive in how you utilize it. So it's beyond just paying the mortgage on time. When it becomes time to using that collateral, when it comes time that someone needs to go to college, you want to make an addition to your home, you want to make an improvement. In terms of the appraisal process, being more proactive in actually almost like a perspective. Somebody wants you to invest in a company, they say, hey, here's a perspective. We're going to give you all kind of information. So you understand the marketplace, know so you're actually creating your own perspective. So look at your own home as your own perspective. So when that appraiser comes out, you're going to say, hey, man, I've already done my homework. Here's what is truly comparable. So, hey, I don't need to whitewash my house. I don't have to pretend that I'm white in order to get an equitable appraisal. No, I am a proud member of the ethnicity and the community that I'm involved in. But at the same time, I understand my asset and where it is in the marketplace. And you're providing that to the appraiser and you're educating them on that. So you're being proactive in that. Secondly, what's most importantly is that when you experience injustice in fair housing, appraisal bias, lowball valuations. You have to be willing to go all the way. Oftentimes we get frustrated. We just drop out of the process. We just say, forget about it. I just stay where I am. Or you might move on and you might be made whole by some other means. But that appraiser that did a bad job, he's still out there in the marketplace and he's affecting someone else. And it's not just one bad appraisal. It's not an anomaly. Now, one bad appraisal affects an entire community because that sale goes in there. So that's affecting all the other sales in their neighborhood for an entire marketing real estate cycle. So if you let it pass, if you don't step up and have some skin in the game and in the fight, because you're not only helping yourself, you're helping your neighbor and you're helping your community. So those are the two biggest takeaways that I wanted to leave your viewers with if they encounter this, and also to try to be preventative and proactive in that appraisal process.
Andre Lanier, thank you so much for being part of PHRC Speaks today. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers are going to feel the same way. And we look forward to hearing how your work progresses on appraisal bias.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I also want to thank our viewers for joining us today. For more information on this topic, or if you believe that you've been a victim of discrimination in a housing transaction, you can visit us online at www.phrc.pa.gov or call us at 717-787-9780. We're also easy to find online at Facebook, PA Human Relations, and Twitter at PA_HumRelCom. All right, that's it for this edition of PHRC Speaks. Until next time, take care, be good, and be fair to each other.
This program has been paid for by the sponsor and does not reflect the views of PCN. To get your program on PCN Fusion and for more information, contact info@pcntv.com.